here with Melinda Bradley, who is a beloved trainer with Godly Play. Melinda, I'm so happy to have this time to talk with you. You are just a delight. And can you share a little bit about your work with Godly Play?
Sure. Thank you, Heather. I'm so glad to be with you. Thanks for the invitation. So I am a Quaker and became aware of Godly Play through the work of somebody at my Quaker meeting who introduced it to us for our children's program. And then I was trained as a storyteller. And then as word about Godly Play kept spreading among Quakers, at some point it became clear that we should be doing training within our community as well. And so I became a trainer, was trained as a trainer in 2010. And a lot of the training I've done has been among friends, the Quaker meetings and churches, and also friends' schools. But I also love doing training in churches as well, and doing foundation trainings in that way. And then part for us as friends, we don't use the liturgical action lessons because we don't use the same liturgy and calendar. So a group of us began to write stories and created faith and play stories, which are sort of our liturgical piece among friends, stories about our faith and practice as Quakers.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Your work with Godly Play has been such a treasure to the organization. I wish we were able to do this sitting across from each other in a coffee shop. If we were, what would you be drinking?
Oh, I would have gotten the largest cup of dark roast that I could get my hands on. I believe in dark roast and good coffee, strong coffee.
Nice. I'm there too right now. I think it's maybe just getting through the days. Dark coffee is helpful.
Yeah, I think there is probably, I don't know that it really has any more caffeine, but there is some sense that it's robust. It's going to get me through.
Oh.
So thank you. What would you be drinking?
Same thing? Same thing. My newest thing, given that we're getting close to the holiday season, is I add a little peppermint oil.
Oh, wow.
A little minty spark.
Very nice.
Well, we are entering with Godly Play what we're calling a season of wonder, and just exploring what wonder looks like and how we can engage in wonder in our day-to-day lives in this really trying holiday season for all of us in different ways. I'd love to hear about your perspective of wonder and how wonder has shown up in your work with Godly Play and your children and family.
Thank you. It's funny, a few years ago, my spouse gave me a little plaque that says wisdom begins in wonder. And I hang that up wherever we are, my office is. And of course, that isn't really about, any kind of end product of wisdom, but the journey that one goes on with wondering. I have found that wondering questions and the idea of wondering with young people, or for any of us, has opened up in so many places. I sometimes say that Godly Play for me has been like sand when you come home from the beach. That, you come home from the beach and there's sand in like bags, you didn't even take out of the car. And Godly Play has been like that for me, that it has seeped and found its way into my parenting for sure, classroom teaching when I was still teaching school, and really kind of all different ways and places. And wondering is a big part of that openness and what Quakers call continuing revelation, the idea that truth can be continually revealed. And if we keep asking questions, friends talk about queries. We use queries in a cycle. There actually are year-long cycles of queries that a friends meeting community or individuals might ask themselves. And of course, as with any wondering question, you come back to the same question. You've grown in new ways and you may answer in new ways. So that constant, that opening is part of what I love about wondering.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
And my children really, so my kids are now teenagers, but the oldest, who's 19, was 3 when we started using Godly Play. And, I've told stories with the third one, pregnant with him and reaching around him. And So I've even asked wondering questions in the car on the way home. You ask kids, how was school? Fine. What did you do? Nothing. But if I ask them, what part of their day they liked best, or what part of their day they could have taken out and still had all that
Oh,
they needed, and they're a little bit like, oh, godly play again. But those are questions that really get to the heart of what's happening with us, what's happening within us.
yeah. Yeah. Those like existential questions that we face every
Right.
day. Yeah. Wow.
Right.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. So one of the things we're talking about is encouraging families to do wonder walks
Mhm.
and notice things along their journey, whether it's in their house or outside or in any way that looks like for them. How has wonder and walks connected in
Ooh.
your life?
Well, even before we knew godly play, we were probably going on wonder walks.
Mm.
So our first child was a very large dog, and so dog walks have always been a really important part of family life. And I can remember my daughter being a toddler and being put into a backpack, and she and her father going out with the dog for a walk, Rufus, the dog. And Matt remembers those walks as being largely quiet, and not that she was asleep, although that might have happened sometimes, but that I love the idea that there was this capacity for taking a walk around the pond where we live into the woods,
Mhm.
and that it was really just about being quiet and being together. I'm sure there was a lot, we're always wondering inside, even if we're not necessarily sharing some of those things. So I think that it's really been happening for a long time.
Mhm.
I actually have in my office on the wall a quote from our youngest child, who's now 13, um, and finds all these things super embarrassing. But one time we were on a family walk, and he turned to me and he said, "There is wonder in the woods." And there really is. And so, he was the kid who really grew up with that language, and that language of wondering and stories on Sunday mornings. And so, for him, wonder has been part of his vocabulary from the time he was small. And even knowing that there we were, out on a walk, a thing we did all the time, but there's wonder in the woods.
Oh,
Yeah.
profound words from a 13-year-old.
Well, he was really little at the time. His
Oh, he was
siblings
oh,
raised him. Yeah, he was, no, he was little at the time. He
okay.
was, I think, like 4,
Oh my
maybe at the
goodness.
time, 4
Wow.
or 5.
Okay.
Yeah. He also one time turned to me again on a walk. And again, he must have been like maybe 5 or 6 or something, but he turned to me and he said, sometimes I wonder why I'm here and why I was born and what I'm supposed to do with my life, and also what happens when you die. And then he ran off to play. And it was such a perfect, I was like, well, I think we just hit on all 4 existential questions. And also the fact that kids' spirituality being something that's ever present, but that they can kind of move, you know, closer to and further from very fluidly. He, made this profound statement and then ran off to play. So yeah, he's William has been, I think he's full of wonder.
Wow. Yeah. We're also entering the season of Advent, and I know for Quakers that looks a bit different for you, but you share what Advent looks like for your family.
Oh, thank you. So my husband was raised Catholic, and as a family with very young children, we were finding our way of what traditions did we want to use from our backgrounds and how we had been raised. Quakers don't keep the liturgical calendar, and so, but it is true that I think there are a lot of people, particularly ones who've come to the Quaker faith from others,
Mhm.
that Advent or Lent might be a personal practice for them. So I decided that it would be really lovely, and at this point we were doing godly play in our meeting community. I thought it'd be really nice to use the Advent story as a way to mark the journey on the way to Christmas, to slow down that journey some, and to really focus it away from just Santa and presents in the tree, to, what this time was really about, what we're really in expectant waiting for. So I ordered, and this is, 15 years ago, I ordered one of the smaller Advent kits from Godly Play. And it became a beloved tradition that on Sunday night after dinner, during the weeks of Advent, I would bring out the box, and Rufus the dog would settle on the floor with the children and their father. And I can remember the dog being there. And I would tell, that week, or, where we were. And by Tuesday, Ellie and James were saying, is it Sunday yet? Is it Sunday yet? Because they loved the tradition. And we would get out our nativity set as we did the story, along with the story, and put it out in that way. So it to me became a really lovely anchor of the Christmas season for our family, and an important way to really look at the story in those parts, and the different journeys that are within the story as we're all on our way to Bethlehem. It's one of the ones that I know my children, who are now older, could share parts themselves from memory.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So I'm actually, I really have started sharing the Advent story pretty widely among Quakers, even though we're not all celebrating Advent, because that story is such a wonderful way to talk about the nativity, and to share, and even the piece about thinking about social justice and the things that we're thinking about these days. Who did God send the angels to first? To the shepherds, the poorest. They were the lowliest, the poorest, out away from the town. Like, there are sometimes older kids really understand the profound message and that piece of it as well. So, yeah.
Wow.
So we'll have that story on later in December at my meeting. We have community worship where it's all ages together, every once in a while, every few months. And I'll tell all the parts of the Advent story together before we settle into worship.
Oh, nice. And this was all ages, the whole.
Yeah, well, being on Zoom.
Yeah, I guess you're on Zoom. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, but when we're together in person, we did this last year, and actually it was great because I love the language in that story, that sometimes when you see something like this, it's not for children, but this one is for you, the ones that children can work with. And we actually brought into our meeting house, we put a quilt down on the floor so the children could sit more comfortably, told the story, and then people had brought in child-friendly ones that the children could touch, nativity sets. And we had them then in the meeting. So the children stayed for the whole hour of silent waiting worship. But we had, there was some, basket of books and some other things, but mostly what they wanted to do, and they did it very, very quietly, was they wanted to work with the story. And I watched a couple of little girls, sisters, take different pieces from the different nativity sets and mix them together and create this, create the story for themselves. It was really, that's the kind of work that you watch children doing, and that the story is going a little deeper for them, and they're getting to work with it in that way.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So a little different on Zoom this year, but
we'll
still make it work.
Yeah. We're all sort of living into a new way of engaging with Godly Play and our spirituality. Yeah.
And people are doing incredible creative things. Really doing good work.
It's amazing. Well, Melinda, you are such a pleasure. I am so grateful for your work with Godly Play and the way that you continue to be engaged in that in so many levels. And so,
thank you, Heather. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad to have you being part of the foundation, and it was great to be able to have a conversation with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.